Hey kiddos. So in our last chapter, or I stopped in the middle of one, but we had just gotten a reply from Shar, and he has told Ella about how boring and how much he doesn't really like living there, and how they're nice, but they barely talk at all. If you want to ask something, they have about one word response. So if you say, "Oh, how is the weather?" Okay. So things like that. So we're now reading Ella's reply. In my reply, I gave him conversation that he so desperately wanted in this new place he was living. Greetings, Shar. How do you do today? Lovely weather we've been having, isn't it? The farmers predict rain, however. They say the crows are chattering. Ah, well, wet weather will do us good, I dare say. We can't have sunny days always. Life isn't like that, is it? Wish it were. Wouldn't that be fine? Never a disappointment, never a harsh word. Don't you agree, sir? A fine fellow such as yourself. You have sense enough to see that it's never as great as it seems. In one dose, I hope I have cured you of your desire for conversation, and I hope that now you aren't so desperate to talk to people. My pen stopped. What else could I tell him? I couldn't explain that I was under a curse. I couldn't explain what had recently happened with Mum Olga. Well, I thought maybe I'd describe it. I would describe it, but omit the detail about the part of me being obedient. He didn't need to know that. He can't know that. Shar's reply was that the Erythians didn't have balls. And when they say balls, they mean like getting dressed up and going to a party, like a big king's ball, thing like that. They have sings, which they held monthly. 3 or 4 Erythians at a time occupy the stage in turn and sing long, sad ballads, or happy tunes, or funny ones, joined by the whole throng in the choruses. The entire population knows thousands of songs, and there is hardly a mediocre voice among them. They all are fantastic. Sounds gush forth from somewhere deep, their toes or their souls. For the long song, they gather their families around them. Husbands and wives, children clasp their hands, tilt their heads to the heavens, and release their music. And I, seated with a few other visitors, add my weak voice to theirs, humming when I can't guess the words and wishing my hands were held too. Perhaps we can come here together someday. By the way, you are a month older than the last time I saw you. Are you still too young to marry me? Ooh. I chuckled at the joke. Then I thought of the bride I'd make in a threadbare, sooty gown that stank of cooking fat and yesterday's dinner now that I was a servant. I wouldn't be a very good bride. Shar repeated the query in every letter, probably because my answers were so silly that it pleased him. If I'm not too young, I was too tired or too wet or too cross, or too angry, or too hungry to marry anyone in my letters. Once I wrote, if my years are measured by inch, then I am certainly too young. The 11-year-old daughter of an acquaintance dwarfs me. The acquaintance was Nancy, the serving maid. Another time I wrote, today I'm too old to marry, 100 at least. I spent my last 80 years and more listening to a lady detail about every single dinner guest she has ever had in her entire life. Frankly, I am too bored and too old to get married. The lady had been Hattie, and I had not attended any meal with her for the last 80 years, but it was still quite funny. I continued in a more serious manner. I have not found anyone in my step-family's circle in whom I can tell things to. And there are a few subjects about which my stepsisters and I share an opinion. It is a great Good luck that I have a pen and a paper and a friend like you to write back and forth. Shar's answer. My tongue may wither from discuss here, but at least I shan't lose words entirely when I can write to you. I always know what to say, my dear Ella, he wrote. Ooh. Sometimes I wonder what would happen if I told Shar that I was the right age to marry. With each of his letters, I fell more and more in love with him. But I can't tell him. If I said I was old enough to marry and his question had been a continuation of a good joke, he would be horribly embarrassed and our easy friendship would be ruined. He might stop writing, which I couldn't endure. I couldn't risk him doing that. If he wasn't jesting, it was for him to say so. Until then or never, I treasured our correspondence. I treasured his letters. I treasured his friendships. In his next letter, he wrote, I don't know when I learned I would be king. It seems I've always known I would be king. But two stories are told, and I've heard them so often that they can and I've heard them so often that they seem to be a memory. Go like this if you understand what he's saying, where you've heard a story so much it almost feels like it actually was a memory from you. I have those from when I was a kid. And I've heard them so often they are memories now. One has me as a hero, and the other is not so flattering. A lute was given to me when I was 6, and my sister Celia was 4. She coveted it and plucked it whenever she could. Finally, I presented it to her, an act that signified to the servants that I would be a generous king. They never considered how indifferent a musician I was. The people around me that it was, I'm sorry, I'm messing around with this one. Where am I? Sorry, guys. My protestations that it was a small sacrifice to part with something. I had little use for where taken as modesty. Another fine king quality. However, I'm not sure how modesty figures in my retelling the tale to you. I do so because I want you to know that I have qualities that others admire. What will you conclude from the next part, I cannot guess. I was in the streets of Frel with my father when a man pelted him with an overripe tomato. So he threw a tomato at him. That's bad. While wiping at his clothes, my father spoke kindly to the man and ended by resolving his grievance. Afterward, I asked why the man hadn't been punished. When father told me, I understood by the time I became king. I said I didn't want to be king and people threw tomatoes at me. I said it seemed like a thankless task. Father roars with laughter when he tells the tale. Now I know why. It is a thankless task, but tomatoes are the least of it. The conclusion I drew from the story was that Shar wasn't above laughing at himself. Of course, he wasn't perfect, eager to share his knowledge on any subject. He neglected to ascertain the interest of his listener, or, in my case, reader. He wrote more about Erythian than I ever wished to know. How the guides were structured, the number of gallons of milk produced in a year by one Erythian cow, the construction of their manures, the construction of their manors or houses, and yet more. This was a minor flaw. He confessed a more serious one. You are almost my sole confidant in this. In that I have told no one else. I trust you, Ella. The other is my horse, to whom I tell everything, but he can't condemn or offer advice. He only listens. I write it to you because you must know all. I trust you to find the good in me, but the bad I must be sure that you don't overlook. I am slow to anger, but I am also slow to forgive. So meaning he doesn't get angry quickly, but he also doesn't forgive people very quickly. For example, My language tutor had a way of making me feel like a fool. I endured his abuse, but learned less than I thought I might have if it had been encouraging. Cecilia, my sister, who inherited his instruction after me, received the same treatment. The first time I found her crying, I warned him. The second time, I dismissed him. Father trusted my judgment enough to let my actions stand. He said, "You should not have to endure that, and neither should your sister." I went further. Boy as I was, I took measures to ensure that the tutor would teach no more. But although my victory was complete and the man was ruined, and 6 years has passed, the thought of him still infuriates me. I am angry now as I write these words. You may excuse me on the grounds of being a kind brother, which I hope I am. But I wonder at my rage, and I wonder too if my actions against the tutor was bottom a case by refusing, in another form, to let someone throw a tomato at me or my family. Did I ruin his life? I wonder, and I feel quite bad about it sometimes. So he's saying that he's done some bad things and he's fired a tutor that he had, and now he feels bad about it. So I think that's actually a good quality to have. So now Ella's writing back. In my reply, I wrote, Mandy says there are two sorts of people in the world, those who blame everyone else and those who only blame themselves. I place myself in a third category, among those who know where blame really lies. You stand condemned. Your crime, too much zeal in the protection of those that you love, a fault and a virtue. Although you have reached your shortcomings to me and you have told me about the things that you have not been proud of, I feel compelled to no such frankness. You must discover my faults for yourself, and although you have said it goes against the grain, you must find a way to forgive them. So basically she's saying that even though he's told her some of the bad things that he's done, she's not going to tell him and he needs to find out himself. I think she's talking about obedience as part of it. And that you need to forgive yourself for everything that you've done. I remember the date of Char's next letter, Thursday, May 24th. He'd been gone half a year. Although the letter arrived in the morning, I was unable to read it all day. At dawn, I had to scrub down the flagstones in our courtyard for Mum Olga. Then Olive ordered me to count her coins in their thousands repeatedly because she kept thinking I'd made a mistake. In the evening, Hattie had me help her prepare for the ball, including plucking out the hairs that grew on her upper lip that to me looked like a mustache. By the time Hattie departed, I was too late to help Mandy clean the kitchen. The rest of the night was mine to use as I liked it. In my room, I opened a little window and let the cool air wash over me. Then I lit the bit of a candle Mandy had smuggled to me. Placing it carefully out of the breeze so it didn't blow out, I sat on my cot and opened my letter. Dear Ella, impatience is not usually my weakness, but your letter torments me. They make me long to saddle my horse and ride to Frel, where I would make you explain yourself. I want to know what you are feeling in person, not over letter. They are playful, interesting, thoughtful, and occasionally serious. I am overjoyed to receive your letters, yet they bring mystery to me. You say little of your daily life. I have no idea how you occupy yourself. I don't mind. I enjoy guessing at the mystery. But what I really long to know, and you don't tell me either, what do you feel? Although I've given you hints by the score of my regard. You like me. You wouldn't waste time on paper. You wouldn't waste time or paper on a being that you didn't like. But I think I've loved you since we met at your mother's funeral. Oh my gosh, guys, this is intense. I want to be with you forever and beyond, but you write that you are too young to marry, or too old, or too short, or too hungry, until I crumple your letters up in despair, only to smooth them out again and read them for a 20th time. Father asks frequently in his letters whether I fancy any Erythraean young lady or in an acquaintance at home. I say no. I suppose I'm confessing another fault, pride. I don't want him to know that I love if my affections are not returned. Meaning, he wants to make sure that Ella likes him too before he tells anything to his father, the king. You would charm him, and my mother too. They would be yours completely and love you, just as I do. What a beautiful bride you'd be, whomever you marry at whatever age. And what a queen if I am the man who has your grace, your expression, your voice. I could extol your virtues endlessly, but I want to finish reading and answer me quickly. Today I cannot write of anything else here. I only post this question and wait. Love, and then in parentheses it says, it is such a relief to pen the word love. Love, 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 love. Char. That was quite unexpected in my eyes. So, you guys, he's basically asked her if she'll marry him, but for real this time. Now, that was kind of a lot in that chapter because it was mostly back and forth in letters and it was very British English. So, next chapter will be good. I have a feeling. So, if you got a little discouraged by that one because there were so many words that maybe weren't familiar, don't worry about it because next chapter is not going to be. All right, what do you think Ella's going to say? I think she's going to want to marry him. Woohoo! All right, have a good day.